So the topic for the beginning of this week-long series of talks is the doors of liberation. And the word doors implies that there's something to pass through, or something that's a clear demarcation to something on the other side. And this idea that it's also an idea there's a clear, complete going someplace. It's not partial. So it's not partial freedom. It's kind of a full freedom, full liberation that's possible. And it's said to be 3 doors to walk through or to move through that different people, for different reasons, different doors open for them as the movement to this more complete experience of liberation can happen. That for some people it's the door of the signless, door that has no sign, no attribute. For other people, there's the door of wishless, having no desire. And some people, it's the door of emptiness, where there's no attribution or involvement with self, seeing that things are empty. And why some people go through one door rather than another is no one really knows, perhaps. And at different times, different doors open for people. And they're, closely related, these, almost like maybe 3 different perspectives on the same movement of release that's possible. But they're like catalysts. It's like certain insights that are catalysts for a kind of deep letting go. So for today, the topic is the signless. And maybe in modern terms, in English terms, we would consider what's called a sign in the Buddhist language, Buddhist kind of teaching, to be an attribute of something that we attribute to something. And the mind is attributing things. We are projecting onto things ideas, concepts of what things are. And sometimes that's quite innocent, and it's also expected that we would do so. So if you see a door, and you can see the entrance. One's 2 doors. One has a sign saying entrance and one exit. That's an attributing of meaning, of purpose, of function to a door, which we've already attributed by looking at it. That's a door. I think there was a time in humanity, maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago, there were no doors. And if someone just propped a door up against a tree, they would no clue that this was a door. But if a modern person saws a door up against a tree, we kind of basically know what doors look like. So, there's a door up against a tree. That's kind of odd. The doorness, the attributing of it being a door, is in the mind that does so. And we think it's inherent in the door because our society around us is doing this sharing and that attribution. But in fact, the mind is involved in doing it, sees this as a sign or an idea or a concept, a projection. Oh, that's a door. That's innocent enough, and as I said, entrance and exit doors, we're expected to cooperate with those kinds of attributions, and it's useful to do so. We don't get kind of bottlenecks around everyone going in and out to the same door. So it has a usefulness, and it's innocent enough there. But there's all forms of attribution, all forms of projection of ideas onto ourselves, the world around us, to people that are a source of tremendous suffering. Bias and prejudice, racism, objectifying someone as our sexual object, what a horrible thing to do, is all kind of, it's a projection, an attribution of something out there that we place on it. And so we're involved, in Buddhist language, we're involved in sign making. And not only making signs, making attributions, living with them, but it can get quite extreme where there's a lot of fixation and tension involved in these signs and attributes. And some people, their mind is constantly involved in the world of aboutness, to be about, thinking about things, thinking about later today, thinking about yesterday, thinking about my friend, thinking about work, thinking about what's for dinner. Mind is usually thinking about something, and whenever the world is about something, there's involved in a world of signifying, of signs, of attributions, of ideas, of projections that actually takes work. Mind is actively involved. And if we're fixated on and attached to these ideas we have, there can be a lot of suffering around them. As practice quiets, as the mind gets stiller and stiller and calmer, there's less and less projection, attribution. And this is not a strange thing. People take vacations, they take a day off from work, they go sit in a park and just look at the river going by or the grass growing or something. And some people can just feel the tensions of work, tensions of the week falling away, and the mind is no longer racing and thinking and worrying about things constantly. And just so nice to just let go of everything. And the sitting in the park, ordinary people who don't meditate on a day off so much can drop away, and so much of the signifying and attributing and projecting onto things that happens with work or difficulties at home maybe falls away, and it's so nice just sit in the park and be left alone. Meditation is to have that experience in a very profound, deep way. This profound letting oneself alone, this profound experiencing of the mind not doing the work of projecting, of signifying, of making attributions on everything and wanting. And we don't pick up the signs, we don't get involved with them. And one of the ways that this operates, one of the ways that this opens up to people, is when in meditation we have when really profoundly in the present moment, really kind of found our way to just being here in a very visceral, complete way. And the experience of here is felt to be very changing, ever-changing, moving and fluxing, coming in and rising and passing. There's a constant movement. And we realize that it's the signifying, it's the projection of the mind that sees permanence or constancy. Not eternal permanence, but at least for today or for these next 5 minutes, we have ideas, this is how things are. But when we see everything moving and changing and fluxing, at some point the mind realizes that its movement to signify, to project, to have a fixed idea of things is not really accurate in the moment. It doesn't really land anywhere. Things are constantly shifting in such a way that by the time that we have attributed or interpreted something as being this is how it is, put a name on it or label on it, it's already shifted and changed to something else. Our perception, our experience, the constant shifting nature of perception. And this sounds like being very busy. It's very relaxed. It's like looking at a river going by where the current and the wavelets are constantly moving. And it's that constant movement which kind of is so deeply relaxing. So to have that experience in meditation with a lot of stillness and quiet, at some point, for some people, the mind lets go of its tendency to project, to attribute names, to attribute concepts, to attribute signification, to what that flowing, changing nature of phenomena is. And that movement of signifying, of having signs, releases. And that feeling of release, it can be quite compelling for our whole system. And something very deep just lets go. deep holding, deep attachment. And then a person has gone through the door of the signless. And that's kind of nice. And one of the things that's nice about it is to realize that we don't have to be so involved and constantly with our thinking, our signifying, our attributing, our projection, that the mind can take care of us quite nicely when the mind is free, without us needing to ride or be intense fixated on what we're thinking about. And I'll end with this kind of metaphor for this. If you're going for a long hike, and you go across a long flat plateau, maybe miles and miles of flat plateau, and you're thinking about how at the edge of the plateau, it's kind of steep cliff you have to walk a deep, come to and look over the edge. And the whole way over there, you're worried about the big cliff. And then you come to the big, and there's no need while you're on the flat plateau to be thinking about what's going to happen at the end. Thinking about how you're going to take care of yourself and worry about yourself. But when you come to that cliff, eventually after many hours, lo and behold, your psychophysical system knows somehow, don't get too close to that edge of the cliff. Stay back 5 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, so you're safe. That doesn't have to be thought about so much. The whole system just knows how to do that. And those hours of thinking about the cliff and worrying about it and all that, and how you're going to take care of yourself, weren't really needed, because the psychophysical system, to some degree, just knew how to take care of itself when it gets close to the edge. So I don't know if that's the best example, but maybe it just gives you some sense. I'm trying to point to some ability that when the mind is free, when it's no longer actively signifying and projecting, and it still operates. And it operates often in a way that we can take care of ourselves, that doesn't have to be so much self-involved. That a liberated mind will know how to take care of itself. But we don't have to be so actively involved as we are when we're fixating on the projections, significations of things. So the signless. Tomorrow I'll talk about the wishless. So thank you for listening and being here, and I look forward to our time tomorrow.